Today we are going to do our first Hibernate code. So what we have to do is first we have to create a class called customer or maybe something else, and then we are going to map it with the corresponding database. So first let's create the class. So here I am in my Eclipse IDE. Let's create our first class. Let's create the project first, new, and you have to create the Java project Java, name it, suppose today is our code 1. We are doing it first time, so let's our project name code 1 and just unmark this module, create module info Java file. Next, our Java project got created. We have to create a class new class customer. Also make a package, suppose com dot example or maybe com dot study. Let's provide some properties inside our customer like private int id, or maybe we can call it CID because it's customer ID, private string name, private phone, string phone, email of customer. Let's create the constructor. First, let's create the default customer constructor because it is the best practice to have a default constructor. In default constructor. Create some parameterized constructor to provide the values when we are creating the object. So generate. As you can see, our properties are private. That means we don't want anyone to insert some values inside our properties variables from outside the class. So for accomplishing this, we have to create getter and setter. So if we want to provide or update the values, then we can use this getter and setters to provide and get the values from these private variables. So our customer class got created. Now what? Now Next step 2 is create Hibernate mapping document, hibernate.hbm.xml, in which we are going to tell for this customer class which table have to be get created for this variable, what is going to be the name of the corresponding columns, and on which column we want to make primary key. So we are going to do this in Hibernate mapping document, hibernate.hbm.xml. Let's make hibernate.hbm.xml. In our code, go to new, other, and write here XML. Choose this XML file. Next. And here we have to provide the name. In name, always provide the Hibernate mapping document with the name of the class we are going to map with. So here customer.hbm.xml. Finish. Because we are going to have numbers of classes, and if we are going to name it as hibernate.hbm.xml, then we will get confused that in this mapping document we have mapped which class. So always name this mapping document with the corresponding class with which we are going to map it with. So let's do that. Open this as generic text editor. So inside here we have to map. What we are going to do is we are going to use some tags. Hibernate mapping, and inside Hibernate mapping, not inside Hibernate mapping, first we have to provide package. Package is package of this particular class. So it is com.study. Then another tag is class. Class name is going to be not like this. Class name is customer, and table customer, suppose T. So what we are doing here, so we created Hibernate mapping tag, we provided package, this package, inside this package we have class which is named with customer. So customer is class, and for this class named customer we want to create the table, and table name is going to be customer T. So for this class which is inside this package, we are going to create table name customer T. Now inside this class our table got created for the corresponding class. Not it's get created right now, we are just writing it. When we are going to run it, then it is going to get created. Now we want to create the columns, so we have to write another tag which is property. name is CID, which is of type int, and for this particular CID we want to create the column also CID. So what is happening in this line? So property name is equal to CID means this variable for this CID which is of type int, this CID is of type int, we want to create the column called CID. So for this is the variable of type int, CID is of type int, we want to create this column inside this table customer T. So likewise this is happening in this line of code. We have to create also for, we have name, we have name, phone, email, which is of type string. The name is of type string. Here S string starts with lowercase string, it is phone. For name variable we want to create column name. For name, for phone column which is of type string, we want to create the column phone. Another we have is email. We want to create email. For the email variable. So let's understand what is happening in these codes. So we are mapping our customer class with the corresponding table that we want to create. So inside Hibernate mapping we are going to mention the package of the class. Then inside class tag we mention the name of the class, which is customer. So here is the customer, and for this customer class we want to create the table customer T, and then inside this customer tag we have properties which are CID. So properties are basically these variables. The properties of this class is these variables. So inside class we are providing properties for CID, which is here variable which is of type int. We are making this column CID. For this name variable property right here we are making the corresponding column name. Likewise for phone and email we are making the corresponding column phone and email. You can also change the column name. It is not necessary that you are going to give the name of column exactly same as the variables. We can name it as CID column. Suppose C stands for column, CC. For class customer we are creating table customer T. For these properties variables we are making these columns. So our customer class got created, our mapping document is well tuned. Now what? Now we have to move to Hibernate configuration document. What we have to do in Hibernate configuration document, we are going to mention that with which database we want to interact with for what database you have to create. We have to tell the Hibernate for what database you have to create the SQL statement. What is the URL of that database, username, password of that database. So we have to mention those things inside Hibernate configuration document. Let's make Hibernate configuration document. But before making Hibernate configuration document, when we have to tell the Hibernate inside this document that with this particular database you have to connect with, we have to first build those corresponding DB vendor jar files inside our project. So let's first build some jar files inside our project. Not only jar files that is going to belong from those DB vendors, but also the jar files of Hibernate, because Hibernate is implemented by the Red Hat. So let's build the jar files of DB vendors and the Red Hat so we can work with Hibernate. So in our project, go to build path, add external archives, or what you can do inside our database, not database, inside our project, build path, configure build path, and in project class path, in library, not in project, class path, add external jars. I am going to provide these all jar files. So I have made a folder. Here are couples of jar files. I am going to give you all these jar files that you have to build inside your project. Then only your Hibernate project is going to work. Otherwise, your code will not run. So you have to first build these all jar files inside your project. Inside these jar files, I have Hibernate jars and also database jars like MySQL and Oracle and other things. So let's select all, open, apply and close. Here, all jars are built in our project. Now let's make Hibernate configuration document. So in our Eclipse IDE, again, you have to go. So we are going to create our Hibernate configuration document inside code, project, other, XML is selected, Hibernate dot configuration cfg dot xml. So make sure these things, our Hibernate configuration document is going to be inside our src folder, and our Hibernate mapping document have to be inside the same package our class is. So inside the package in which our class is, our hbm.xml mapping document is going to be in, and our Hibernate configuration document is going to be inside src folder. So inside our configuration document, we have to write these tags: Hibernate configuration as I already told. I am going to provide these jar files, not these ones. Here are the jar files that is needed to work with Hibernate. So you will find this inside the link in the description. So let's see inside our configuration what we have to do. Hibernate configuration, and in here there is a tag called as session factory. Inside session factory we have property name hibernate dot connection dot URL. So URL of our database with which we want to connect is of Oracle. Remember in JDBC when we are trying to get connection, then we mention our URL maybe of type MySQL or Oracle. Right now here we are first going to work with Oracle. So it's the URL of database that we are going to work with. Likewise, copy this, paste this. We also used to mention our username and password. So by default in Oracle it is system username, provide username, then password. My password is this. Password. But we also have to provide the driver class with which we want to work. Remember in JDBC, we used to load the class with a class.4name, and inside that we used to provide a parameter as argument as of maybe type Oracle or MySQL. Like in case of Oracle, the driver class is driver class is oracle dot jdbc dot driver dot oracle driver. So it's kind of same as what we do inside JDBC, but right here what is difference is that we only have to configure all these things only once, but in JDBC we have to do that in every code. Once we will configure all these, then we don't have to do it again and again. So next is maybe we want pool size. Now what is pool size? It's just a prerequisite thing before we work on our Hibernate codes, or it's, you can say, a prerequisite things. These codes are some prerequisites so that Hibernate can contact with other JDBC APIs and databases. And also on the left hand side, it can interact with our class. Okay, pool size. Another thing is we have dialect, and dialect goes like this. Dialect org.hibernate dot dialect dot oracle Dialect. What is dialect? Dialect basically represent that we are telling Hibernate for what particular database you have to create SQL queries. So here we mentioned Oracle dialect. So we are telling that for Oracle, as we have mentioned Oracle database right here. So for Oracle, Hibernate have to create the SQL queries. If what will happen if there is MySQL? In that case, we will provide dialect of MySQL, which is MySQL 8 dialect. In case of MySQL, if we are working with MySQL database, then we are going to use this dialect of Hibernate. But right now, Oracle dialect, because we are working with Oracle database. Another thing we have is so SQL. Now what this is going to do, you will observe this at the time when we are running the code. So SQL is going to be true. Last one maybe we have is, so last one is update. We are doing update for HBM to DDL dot, not dot, it's underscore auto, it's dot auto. When we are going to run our program, then also you are going to see what this is doing. But right here, it's not like this. It's just HBM to DDL dot auto, and in here, it's just Hibernate dot social. So it is like this. Now the last one and important one is mapping the source. So here we are mapping this mapping document, which is inside hbm.xml is inside this package. So com study customer dot hbm.xml. Now what this is representing right here, this line, what this line is representing. So in Hibernate mapping hbm.xml, we map the customer class, and inside Hibernate configuration document, configuration.xml, CFG XML, we are telling that please map this Hibernate mapping document. So we are mentioning in this line to Hibernate to map this resource, which is Hibernate mapping document. Now we are good to write our first code. So these all are these two files are prerequisite things that you can say in order to work with Hibernate. So we have create the corresponding tables and columns of this class. Then we mention that which database we are working with, what is the username, password, URL, dialect represent that for which database Hibernate have to create the SQL queries. and these two, you will see what these two are doing when we run our program. And in resource, we are mapping this Hibernate mapping document. Now let's go to our diagram. Our class is ready, Hibernate mapping document is ready, Hibernate configuration document is ready. Now time to create the object of customer and use some methods. But before that, we also have to write couples line of codes. Like right here, I have mentioned these lines. These represent codes. So what codes? Let's create one client code through which we are going to insert our data inside the table. Right now, table is not created. When we are going to use this method, then data and columns, table and columns will get created, and these values will get inserted in the corresponding columns. So let's first write this client code. Now it is time for writing this part of Hibernate code. So in here, let's make another class. It's just a simple Java class. Let's say create, because we are creating table. And we have to run this code, so everything should have to be inside the main method. Now again we have to write some prerequisite methods and lines of codes like we did right here in the Hibernate configuration document. What? So let me first write, then I am going to explain those codes to you. First we have to use is configuration is equal to new. Let's import this. It is coming from org.hibernate.cfg. You can see here with the configuration there is lot of package. So this configuration are coming from lot of different package. When you are importing, then you have to keep in mind that from which package you want to import. So org.hibernate.configuration, from where this package is coming. We have just built our jars. So from these jars, this package is coming. So you have to import this one, org.hibernate.id. Not id, maybe. Let me see. This one, org.hibernate.cfg. So this configuration you have imported. Now let's create the object. And with this configuration, you have to configure cfg dot we have to configure Hibernate dot configuration document xml. Save this inside configuration again. Let cfg dot. I will explain this. Let me write it first. Build session factory, and here we have session factory. We also have to import this from the org.hibernate. Remember this, don't import from the wrong package. And here we have this. So what actually we did right here? So we have to create one configuration object. Then with that configuration object, we have to use this method inside which we have to pass argument this Hibernate configuration document. So we provided this configuration document inside this configure method as an argument. Then with the same configuration, we are calling this method build session factory. What is session factory? So here you can see, let me go through the first. We configure our customer class inside the customer .hbm.xml, which is mapping document. So we mapped our customer class inside Hibernate mapping document, and then we map the Hibernate mapping document inside Hibernate configuration document right here. Map resource. We mapped it, and now we are mapping Hibernate configuration document inside our client code. So you can see here, we mapped this right here. So everything have to be get connected in order to run the Hibernate. So the Hibernate can understand that which files belongs to which one. So we are calling, you can say we are calling this Hibernate configuration document right here, so that this CFG can understand that inside the Hibernate configuration document we have mentioned Hibernate mapping document, and in Hibernate mapping document we map the corresponding class to make tables and columns. So this is the way all steps are working. Now with the same CFG we are calling this method build session factory. What is session factory? Remember, in Hibernate configuration document we mentioned this session factory. We mentioned session factory, and inside this session factory we mentioned these database classes, URLs, username, password, dialect, and these resources. So now we are building this session factory. Here is the session factory tag. Now we are building this, so everything will get executed. So let me go through again. We are building this session factory, and which session factory we are building? So inside the CFG, we configure this configuration document. With that CFG, we are building session factory. So inside this CFG, we have this configuration document. So in this configuration document, we have mentioned the Hibernate mapping document, customer HBM XML. So here is customer HBM XML. What we did in customer HBM XML Hibernate mapping document is we mentioned that for which table, for which class, which table have to be created, for which variables, which column have to be created. So it's kind of link. You have to understand that you have to kind of hard code these all things. There is no workaround. So everything is coming in steps. In session factory, we are building session factory, which is coming from CFG. In CFG, we have configured this CFG XML. Right here is a session factory. So with the same CFG, we are build session factory, and we are saving this inside session factory reference variable. Now what? With SF, we have to open this session. Open session. Now again, it is going to be inside session. We have to import this from Hibernate. Session variable, and this from this session dot begin transaction. Transact and TXS. We have to import transaction as well. It have to be. transaction from Hibernate, org.hibernate. Remember this to import from the right package. So I think you got the idea till these points. What is happening inside all these steps? You got the idea what is going on. We are going step by step backwards, like in session factory. In CFG, we have configured this CFG XML. Inside CFG XML, we have configured customer mapping. In customer mapping, we have configured our customer class. So you got this idea in these 3 lines what are happening. With this same SF, reference variable of session factory object, we are opening this session, and with this session we are beginning the transaction. Begin transaction. Just understand the open session factory as it is. Remember this line, and in begin transaction, what is happening that Hibernate is responsible to automatically insert the data inside the database. So when we are going to write our code right here, like we are making customer object and then we are passing inside some methods, then what this transaction will do, it will automatically flush the results, flush the data inside the database automatically. Like if we are going to do tx commit, then automatically the values we are going to provide inside the object of customer right here is going to get inserted inside the database. That is why we are using begin transaction to flush the values in database. So now let's create the customer object. Customer, first one is equal to new in CID, suppose 50, and in name Raj, and here we have what we have, phone should be of type long, change it here long, then we have to change it everywhere like long, and also inside the mapping document, because here phone is of type string, here it goes of type long. And in email at gmail.com, something is wrong. Okay, close this. Now to create the table and flush these values of customer object inside the table and corresponding columns that are going to get created, we have to use the method session.save, and inside this the reference variable, or you can say the object. So I think you got the idea what is going on right here. I am going to explain all these codes again, but let's first do try and catch, because a lot of things are going to be uncanny. So let's do try and catch. E.print stack trace for, so every line that is throwing exception will get caused, and it will show what is the exact exception happening on which line, where this print stack trace do these things. And here, let's understand all codes one more time. So you have to write this configuration. You have to get the object of configuration. Remember to import from the right package, that is org.hibernate. And with the configuration, you have to configure the Hibernate document, Hibernate configuration document. So with the same CFG configuration object, we are calling this method and passing argument as this Hibernate configuration document, this configuration document, and we are saving all this with the same configuration object. With the same configuration object, again we are building the session factory. So inside the CFG, we have right now this Hibernate configuration document. Hibernate configuration document we have in this same CFG, and we are doing build session factory. So in this Hibernate configuration document that we mentioned here, we have this session factory tag. So inside whatever is inside this session factory will get initialized. What is inside this session factory? The database driver that we are working with, URL of that database, username, password, dialect, that for which database you have to Hibernate have to create the SQL statement. And we also have mapped, configured the Hibernate mapping document inside this session factory, customer.hbm.xml, Hibernate mapping document. So when we are building session factory, it will also know that for which Hibernate mapping document we are talking about, because it is inside the session factory. It is inside the session factory that we have mentioned in here. In this Hibernate configuration, we also mentioned Hibernate mapping. So with all these things, this Hibernate mapping will also get initialized. And inside this Hibernate config mapping document, we have mentioned the class, that for which class, which table have to be created, for which properties of the class, for which variable, what columns should have to be created. So till here, everything is clear. With this session factory, we created session object by using this method open session. Okay. So what we do with this session, we are using it to call the method that is going to be responsible to create the table, create the column, and inserting these values. These values are inside this reference variable of object. You can say this directly object, and this inside this method, save method, we are passing this reference variable, and this method is called with this session object. So with this session factory object, we are calling session object. With this session object, we are calling this method which is going to be responsible to pass the value of the customer object inside the database. In between, Hibernate runtime system is going to be come in place. When this is going to be called, then it is going to call the Hibernate runtime system. Basically, Hibernate runtime system is going to evaluate this line of code. So you also get the idea of what this session object is doing and what this transaction line is doing. When we are calling begin transaction with this session object, then it is responsible. Then we are going to get the transaction object, and this transaction object is going to be responsible to flush everything to the database. You can understand it as By the Hibernate runtime system, everything is ready. But what it means, like Hibernate runtime system is going to extract the values from this reference variable of this object, customer object, and Hibernate runtime system will create the SQL queries and populate those SQL queries with the values, these values. But Hibernate runtime system will not flush, not insert the data inside the table. That is going to happen when we are running this line, transaction.commit. Then only those values are going to get inserted inside the table. So I think you got every line of code clearly, what every line of code is doing right here. First, you also have to write these codes, then understand it one by one, that what every line is going to do. You got this idea for configuration. You also understand this. You have gone through this. We have seen what these two are doing. With this session, we are calling this save method that is responsible for, you can say, calling the Hibernate runtime system. And with commit, everything is going to be ready, but not going to be flushed inside the database. With the commit, when we are doing transaction.commit, then only everything is going to be flushed inside the database. Now what we can do is, session is a resource. We can close that resource, session.close. Right now what we are doing is we are only using one object, but we can also do these kind of things right here, like customer2, and we are passing session.save customer second object. But suppose if this line of code runs well, but we got exception in this, and we are also committing with the help of transaction, but we are getting exception right here. So what will happen? So this is the wrong practice. What will happen, that this line will get flushed inside the database, but this line of code will not get flushed inside database. But we want that when both of these will work, then only commit statement will work. Otherwise, nothing will get inserted inside the database. So what we can do, whenever any one of these will throw exception, then commit will not happen. What we have to do? We have to do is roll back. Roll back. I know. Let's provide this rollback. So what rollback is do? If everything is fine, you know that database works on all or nothing criteria. Database works on all or nothing criteria. Everything's worked fine, then it is going to committed. If something is going to be wrong, then nothing will get committed. So whenever exception arise anywhere, then everything is going to be rolled back in the exception, in the catch block. But this is giving some error. This is because it is inside the try catch. So let's move this outside of try catch. Is equal to null. Roll back. If everything is fine, then everything got committed. Otherwise, if exception arise, then nothing will get committed and everything that is pre-committed will be rolled back. So right now we don't have to run two of the lines. We only want to work with only one object. We only want to provide database. We have to populate those tables and columns with only these values. Everything looks fine. What will happen for CID? We have created the column CIDC. Inside this CIDC, 50 will be inserted. Inside name, the corresponding column is name C. This Raj will be inserted. For phone C, this will be inserted. For email C, this is the column we made, email C, for the corresponding property which is email, corresponding property which is email. This is property of a class. So for this email, we created the email C column, and right here email C, and this email C, this email will be get inserted. So we are calling this session.save. Everything looks fine. Let's run this code, but before running this code, let's see that in our Oracle, because we are working with Oracle, is this table that we are creating exists or not. Otherwise, it can give some error. So here is the my Oracle database I have. This is wrong. Enter username. System is username. So this is how I am accessing my Oracle. Remember this system name, same we have provided in Hibernate configuration system, and for password this. So what Hibernate is going to do, it will automatically going to call this database and provide the username and password. I don't have to do. What we are trying to do here is we have to check is that the table we are trying to create is exist or not. Let's start from customer team. This is the table we are trying to create. Customer team. I don't think it will be there. Table or view doesn't exist. We don't have any table with this name. Let's just run this code. Run as Java application. We got some error. No problem. We will figure it out. Unable to perform unmarshalling at line. So right here, what it is saying, cannot find the declaration of element Hibernate configuration. In Hibernate configuration, maybe we have some problem. Hibernate configuration doesn't find the element, declaration of element. So here HBM, so customer.hbm.xml, right here HMB, convert it into the HBM. Let's run it again, run as Java application. Again, something is wrong, cannot invoke transaction rollback because S is null. And not find declaration of element Hibernate. Cannot find declaration of. Let's run it again. Let's see. So what it is saying, Hibernate con Hibernate configuration, con configuration. Maybe this is the mistake. Run a Java application. Maybe these things are happening before because we didn't provide the column for primary key. There must be a primary key maybe. So let's first make some column as a primary key, and then we will see that code will run or not. So for making a column as a primary key, ID, name, PID, type, and column, PID, C. Generator class increment. Generator class increment. So what is happening right here is we are making one class as an primary key, not one class, one column as an primary key. For this CID, we are making primary key. Make primary key. This is the index. If we want to make the normal columns, these are the index. If we want to make certain column as a primary key, this is in the index. In ID tag, provide the name, same thing that we are providing right here. And then in generator, this is the thing that you have to hardcore. What this means? This means that the Hibernate will automatically give the values inside the column CID C, because it is the primary key. We don't have to provide the values for this column right here. It will by automatically given by the Hibernate. Maybe this will work. So CID becomes the primary key column. Right now we can remove this, and as we are not providing CID value in the argument of the customer, we have to create another constructor right here, because here one is with CID, another one is default. Default constructor is also important. You must have to be having one default constructor when you are working with Hibernate. Let's create the constructor without CID. Now, if we run this program, let's see what will happen. Still error. So right now, it is saying that unable to load class driver. Okay, let's fix that. It's driver. What next? Let's run that again. Okay, everything is fine. Okay, That's all. Our first Hibernate program is successful. Here you can see in console, default constructor got called, table got created, create table customer T with these columns, column CID, C, CNAME, email C, and phone C, and primary key is added as CIDC. Table got created by the Hibernate. We didn't created table by ourselves. Value got inserted in our tables. Insert into customer T. Let's check. In our Oracle, select, or let's do this. Yes, our table got created. Here you can see these are the columns that we have mentioned right here in mapping, and so for name property, that is in customer class, we created this column CNAME, name C. Name C is here. For CID, we created CID, which is of primary key. Here is the primary key. Email C. This column is also got created. And phone C is also got created. And value also got inserted right here. For CID, here is 1. For name C, here is Raj. It's unstructured right now, but let's see in this. Email is, here is the email. Our phone number is right here. But when we didn't created the CID, can it be get created without the CID? Let's see. Property name, CID is our property in the customer table, which is of type int, column this CID C, COLUM, C. Something is wrong. Okay. So you have to take care of syntaxes. Let's delete this table from here. So drop table customer T. So now table is not there. You can see customer T doesn't exist. Let's run this again. Right now we are not providing CID. It's going to give error again. What if we are going to provide the value for CID like 55 and run this again? So as you can see, there must be one primary key column when you are working with Hibernate. Otherwise, it will not work. So let me create the primary key column again. We are making CID as primary key. This CID property, how we do it? To making any column primary key, what we have to do is ID. Same thing that we do in the case of other columns. Name is CID, which is of type int, and column that have to be get created in table customer T is CIDC. And before closing this ID tag, we have to mention generator class increment. What this line is going to do? Hibernate is going, when we are going to mention this line, what Hibernate will do, it will by default automatically provide the values for this CID column, CIDC column. We don't have to provide values from right here. If you don't provide value, right now you can see we don't have table customer T. We are going to run this. We are not providing value for CID. Again, there is some error. Let me see, we make changes right here. We created the generator GNE. Not like this. So we are not providing values for CID column. You can see how our work got simplified through the Hibernate. We just make the object of customer and use this method of session save. Our values by default goes inside the table. We also don't have to create table by ourselves. Table got created. Here you can see table got created, columns got created, primary key column got created, and our values also got inserted by itself. It is my C column. Here comes the columns inside this table. Here comes the value. For CID, we didn't provide the value 1, but Hibernate by default it automatically gives the value for CID column, primary key column. Hibernate gives the value for the primary key column. What if we are going to run this again? And again, see, you can see right here, in first query, when we run this in first time, then there is a line where table creation statement is showing, but right now no table create table statement is showing because table already got created. Hibernate is not creating table again. So it is smart. It is only inserting the values inside that table, that customer T. It is not creating that table again. Let's see, value got inserted or not. You can see for CID 1, for CID column primary key, which is the primary key column, Hibernate gives 2. We didn't provide the value 2. For 3, Hibernate gives the value 3. So for column primary key, we don't have to give the values right here. Hibernate will give the value. What if we give the value and run it again? What will happen is this value is going to mean nothing. The next value that is going to get inserted is 4. Here is the last one is 3. You can see again the 4 is come. Here is 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So this value is not going to mean anything if we are going to provide implicitly. It is provided by the Hibernate. If we try to provide explicitly, it doesn't mean anything because implicitly Hibernate provides it. So this is Hibernate. we just have to configure these files, and we are going to provide the value in the object, and automatically Hibernate runtime system will take this object and extract the values and create the SQL queries and populate those SQL queries with these values and insert. With the help of this transaction.commit, everything will be flushed to the database. Let's see. We are not going to use commit. Is that everything is going to inserted or not? So the next value here we are going to see is 5. Is it coming or not? Let's see. Look, I don't have to run this because value by default not get inserted. Remember, we are getting here insert query every time. That is showing that everything is got inserted. But right now that insert query doesn't show up. Means nothing got inserted when we didn't committed. So here 5 is not here, it's the old values. This is what happened with the commit. Nothing will get flushed into the database. Let's see other things like if I am going to run this right now. Let me do some changes like Kumar, something else, Kumar Gmail. So by default CID is going to be 5, which is primary key is going to be 5 by default, and these values have to be get inserted. So what I am trying to show you right now in the Hibernate configuration document, right here I told you that for these 2 lines of code you will get to understand these 2 lines when we are going to do the code. So right now this is the time. What hibernate.sourceSQL_SQL do, if it is true, source SQL, if it is true, means that whatever query internally Hibernate runtime system is running, like all these queries, create a statement and insert values inside that table statement like this, is being internally run by or executed by or written by, you can say, is Hibernate runtime system. This insert query, we didn't write it. This is internally done by Hibernate runtime system. So here we got 5, and here is the Kumar's Gmail. So whatever query internally Hibernate runtime system is generating is going to be displayed on the console, our terminal. If this show_SQL is true, if we convert it into the false and like hit it, we are going to run this, then this insert statement that internally Hibernate runtime system is issuing is not going to display into our console, but insert statement will be issued, only it is not going to display it in our console because it is source SQL. If it is true, internal query will be displayed in our SQL in our console. If it is false, no query will be displayed right here. You can see here that is false right now. Right now we have Kumar 555. So it's completed right here. Nothing is running. Value got inserted, but insert statement is not displaying in our console. So make it true so you can see what SQL statement the Hibernate runtime system is generating. And for this line, you will understand this line of code in later parts of this video. So right now what we can do, we can change the database from Oracle to the MySQL. So to do that, you can work on any one of these. Let's see how the Hibernate actually works when you want to convert the databases. You just have to provide the driver class of Hibernate of MySQL right here, which is of com.mysql dot not MySQL com.jdbc dot mysql dot driver, or it is com.mysql dot jdbc dot driver. Okay, this is the driver class and the URL is, I don't remember the URL. Let me get it. So I am guessing you are familiar with database, that's why you are learning Hibernate. So in case of Oracle, we don't have database concept. Like in Oracle, every table got inserted inside the Oracle database as an separate unit. But inside case of MySQL, we have databases, and inside those databases, we have to save the tables. In Oracle, we don't have database concept. Every table is individually inserted. But inside the MySQL, we have database inside which we have to insert the tables. So the password of MySQL is, that is wrong password. Yes. So you can see here for databases. So these are the database I have. Let's create a new database first. MySQL is not going to create database for you. It is going to create from table and on forwards, but you have to create database by yourself. And also tell Hibernate that with which database you are working with. So we will see how we are going to tell Hibernate database with which we are working with. Create database study, and then we have to use this study database study. Now inside the database, we are inside the study database because database is changed. If we want to show the tables, what is inside the study, there is no tables. Empty set means no tables. So we created the database study. Now to tell the database Hibernate with which database we are working, in the last of URL, we have to write the database name. And we have to change the username for MySQL. The default user is root. My password is this, and you can just get rid of this line of full size, and you also have to give the dialect of MySQL. What is dialect again? By dialect we give the information to the Hibernate that for which database, like for MySQL, which database you have to create the SQL. You remember Hibernate runtime system is by default creating the queries, SQL queries. So we have to tell Hibernate that for which database you have to create the SQL queries, because it is going to create SQL queries automatically. For MySQL, dialect is this, and that's all. We got configured. We got converted from the Oracle to the our MySQL database. Now we are going to run this. Let's see. One table named as customer T will get created. Table got created. So this SQL statement is showing here in command console because hibernate.show_SQL is true. If it is false, then nothing will appear here. No SQL statement will appear here that internally Hibernate is generating. So what is going on? Table got created, value got inserted. Let's see. So tables, you can see table got created. Customer T. These are the columns automatically got created. You can see it is the primary key. Hibernate makes this field CID C as a primary key. Select star from customer T. So this primary key value got inserted by the Hibernate runtime system, and we provided values for these columns. This is how Hibernate works. Let's provide some more values like Raj. Now what we can do, we can make couples of objects like this to provide multiple values. Suppose right here, Ritesh, Mal, Anwar, Kapil. Anwar, Kamal. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have to save every object. So how to save every object? Just use this method from the session.save. Everything will be get inserted inside the table automatically through the Hibernate, or you can say Hibernate runtime system. We are going to run this. You can see multiple insert statement will issue. Insert statement, insert into insert statement. Multiple insert statement got issued by the Hibernate runtime system. Let's close the MySQL. Not MySQL. I close the Oracle, and here is the MySQL. Let's see the values. So we got these values. See, primary key column CID got populated by itself. We didn't provide these values. We provided only these values. We only give these values, not for primary key CID C column. So this is how you insert values. What about updating the values? Or what about reading the values? So this is how we create the table, how we configure the table for which class, which table have to be get created for which column, have to be get created for which property, and then we join this Hibernate mapping to the Hibernate config, then right here, and then we join this Hibernate config document, configuration document in this line of codes. And with this line of codes, we create the session object by which we are able to call this save method, and with the transaction we use to flush these values into the database. If we didn't have used these values, then these values if we didn't have used the commit statement, then this will not flush to the database. So this have to be important. So we know how to create table, how to insert the values in the corresponding columns. Now what if we want to read these values? So let's do that. So here is the create code. Let me copy and paste it again so we can save some time. Now we want to read. Inside read, let's delete these things. These codes are going to be inside every Hibernate program. You can consider it as prerequisite because we want session object. We want session object to read. We have save method to insert the values. We have load method to read the values. From where we want to read? We want to read the values which is inserted inside the table customer T, and this customer T is got created by the customer class. So how we are going to do that? In session.load method, you have to mention the class name like this, and right here in the second argument you have to provide from where, from which row you want to read the values. Suppose I am going to give here 5. So the row where primary key is 5 is going to get loaded. Session.load, we provided customer.class, so the corresponding table will get loaded, and we provided 5. 5 here represent the primary key. 5 here represent the primary key. So the corresponding row of this primary key will get loaded. If I am going to give here 3, then the row which is inside the primary key 3 is going to get loaded. So Kamal Gmail will get loaded. Let's see. So it is going to give return back customer. It is going to return back customer object. Just print this object. See, you can see right here what will happen. One select statement will be issued. Here you can see select statement by internally when we use the load method here session.load, then automatically by Hibernate runtime system select statement is issued, and here is the result. It is with a hexadecimal format. For that, what we can do is toString. No, it is not working because toString here is not going to work. We have to provide toString method right here inside our customer class. Now, if you are going to run that again, then you can see that we can see values which is on the CID primary key 3. This is the row here. For this CID3 row, CID3 primary key, this Kamal and Kamal email is being selected. So this is how select statement work. Now what else we can do? We see how to create, we know how to read. We have to next go through how to delete. So for that, let's again copy and paste this code, delete code. You know the CURD operation, CURD, create, read, delete, update. Those are the basic operation that we perform with database. Even in the case of JDBC, we perform these four CURD operation, create, read, update, delete. That is what we are implementing here. We created, we go through read, how to read. Now we are going to go through how to delete. Or maybe before going through delete, let's go through how to update. Right here. Copy this and this. How to update the values inside the database. So in update, these are the prerequisite things you have to do. Let it be right here. To do update, we also have method in this session called as, first we have to load. Of course, for doing update, first we have to load the data, like for which row we want to update certain values. So first we have to load. That's the simple logic. So let's first load. So the corresponding class of table is customer.class, and from which row. So we have to provide primary key. Suppose from the second primary key, from this row 2. So we have to provide primary key. So it is going to load the value of the row where primary key is 2. So we are going to save this in customer plus. Now we want to update that. So cus.set, suppose phone number. So at 2, primary key 2, we have phone number 88. Now we want to provide like 71155. So by doing this, phone number will be changed where primary key is 2. And this set phone number, what is this set phone number? So here is the customer object and we are calling this setter method. Remember the setter method? Right here, set phone number, set phone. We are providing the new phone number which is going to get inside this phone, which is going to get updated by itself through the Hibernate runtime system inside our database. So this is the customer object that we loaded. where primary key is 2, and at there we are calling the setter method. Run this. One update statement will be issued right here. One update statement is issued, you can see. So let's see. Right now it is 88 at primary key 2. It becomes this. This is how you do create, read, and now we have gone through update. Let's go through delete, the last one. Also for deleting, first we have to load which record, which row we have to delete. So at the primary key 3, we want to delete this record. So just C is the, not C, C is the object of customer. To delete, we have method in session delete and provide the object of corresponding class, which is customer. So we have loaded this value where primary key is 3, and we are deleting, calling delete method with session object C. So this whole row will got deleted. One delete statement will be issued right here. Delete statement is being called. So 3 is gone. You can see 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So now we know how to create corresponding tables and columns from any particular class and its properties, how to configure those in the Hibernate mapping and Hibernate configuration, and how to do CURD operation, create operation we created, we updated, CU created, updated, read, we know how to read. First we have to load, then we just simply print, and delete. In delete we also have to first load. In update, read and delete, first we have to load the data from the database. So we are using this load method. And then to read, simply we read. To delete, we again use the delete method from the session. And to update is just simply got updated when you use setter method. So we know CURD operation, we have done CURD operation and created the table in the Hibernate. But in here, we use the XML approach for configuring the class and table that we want to create. There is another way, which is by using annotations. So for the customer class, we created customer T table, and we are configuring these all things for the particular property. We are creating the corresponding column in the table. We are all doing this inside the Hibernate mapping document, which is XML. But there is another way. We can configure all this with the help of annotation inside this customer table, customer class. We don't have to use XML document. We can configure all this not from here XML document. We can configure this right from the customer class. So how to configure? Through the annotations. We are going to go through this in the next video, so stay tuned.